This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity.
People saw myself and then attributed that I'm a Kenyan runner. I'm not from Africa. These are all the stories I put on myself to really push myself down. When I was in spaces like yoga, I also then, on the other hand, from the Black community, got that you're a sellout and that you're acting white. For me, that was even more traumatizing.
So, in your experience, how has it been for you as a Black fitness provider, being a Black body and seeing other Black bodies? How has that played a part in what you do and how you do it? And how has that pushed your motivation to move forward in this space? And if you give me a hand raise, I'll click on you. I'll start with Wes, and then I'll go with you, Erica. Mr. Hamilton.
All right, cool. Yeah, live and direct. For me, I started my journey after the age of 26. I'm 30, a lot of different avenues in these few years, and competing in bodybuilding in a lot of Black bodies. But being a part of the disabled community, it comes from a source of empathy. So it was welcoming. Being a part of this community and this group. So I could see myself while I maneuvered through them. But seeing what these opportunities did, like seeing what going into fitness, seeing what being on a competition scale did for me mentally, only pushed me more to push health and fitness to our communities. So for me, with my organization and the efforts that I'm doing is, how can I, when I know that certain levels of fitness work better for certain people when it comes to mentally, physically, the challenge, how can I make sure that these faces, and then we have the faces like you and I, they're actually instructing? Because the issue is, we can get into fitness, but we're going into places that we aren't accepted. And when you're going in spaces when you don't feel accepted, now you aren't as confident when you go into like pushing yourself. Because now it's like you're a tool, or you're like this prize gold like trophy. And unfortunately, it's like that. Like for me, when I started to get in fitness, I seen that of how people looked at me like it was just the most amazing thing to see a Black man go into a space that he's not really a part of. And that's what really, that was, for me, that was like, you know what? No, let me go back and start grabbing more people, because I see what's missing. And I don't want to be the only person. And I don't want to be tugged on thinking that I'm supposed to highlight something that only made me feel better and help me take control of my life better. It's not like I'm doing this for trophies. I'm doing this and I take it to plant those seeds in my community to see more Black bodies in this realm, because of the benefits that I know it did for me, knowing who I used to be, right? Like, so I think for me, just the knowing that space lacked it, and then having a disability and the lack of accessibility and facilities, the lack of even that, I'm inspirational like porn every time I go in the gym. I can't even do pull-ups, in my wheelchair without people stopping me. I get that it's amazing, right? Like, I get it. You never seen it. But I also get that I'm just in here trying to better myself like you, and so like, but if you see more people in that space, then it becomes a norm, and it's like, that's what I see for us. It's like, it's not such a norm because it's not enough of us. But as we keep pushing it and get these communities and get these facilities in these communities and trainers that look like us, that understand from an empathetic point of view, the amount of growth that we're going through, because it's not just physical. Most of it's mental. We deal with stuff every day. We probably dealt with it before we went in there. Then that's how we create something that's monumental. So that's my put, but I know I kind of went over the board, but yeah, going into these spaces that lack us only made me want to fill them up with us.
Erica, going back and following up on Wes, I know you were going to share with us as well.
I'll start by sharing that I think that there's a two-prong approach in this. As I share, and for me, it's been a huge part of my work. I grew up in Nebraska, and health and fitness was always so important to me. And where I found more comfort was in white spaces. However, that also for me was a self-sabotaging way. I ran track. I was really great at it, and I self-sabotaged and took myself out of it a lot of times because I didn't want to fit into this stereotypical mold of you're Black and that means you're fast. Like you are a good runner or you're a fast runner. And for me, that was really traumatizing to be stereotyped in that way. Second, and so a lot of my work was really letting go of the story that because I'm doing something and I'm accelerating, it doesn't mean that I am, because a lot of, Yard and I really identified what you shared about being Jamaica and Black, is that so many people saw myself and then attributed that like I'm a Kenyan runner and I could run fast. Well, it was short distance. I'm not from Africa, so I really did, these are all the stories I put on myself to really push myself down. On the contrary, when I was in spaces like yoga, mindfulness, I also then, on the other hand, from the Black community, got that you're a sellout and that you're acting white and you're doing things for white people. And so for me, that was even more traumatizing. I don't know why I'm getting emotional about talking about it. I always do, but because that is like a huge part of my work on both sides. So I really didn't know where do I fit in. And so for me, I'm very now unapologetic in Black communities, particularly I'll speak in a Black community where, a huge part of my story is that I was acting white, and I gave up that story, gave up what that looks like, because the Black community where there can be more healing is through really cultivating self. And once you are in tune with the mind, body, and spirit, that's how we will be able to eradicate things such as obesity, high blood pressure. In Black communities for female, the highest death rate when it comes to pregnancy. There's so many different inequities in being able to take a stand and say, no, I want food that is sustainable and it's organic and it's healthy and enriches and enlivens my body to be more vital. And to be able to speak on that and have that voice, it's taken a lot of work for myself to feel comfortable and confident in that. To be really unapologetic that it is not something that is deserved or earned. It's our right. It's the right of all people. And when we can uplift Black community, then we uplift all of our community to thrive.
Thank you for bringing that out, because that is why we're having these conversations. Yarden, you were an athlete. How was the transition from being an athlete to being a fitness owner and delivering health and wellness to others? Like, how did you feel as an athlete?
Well, what's funny is, I'm going to work backward to that answer, but, and this is a nasty thing that this country still doesn't want to talk about, but our bodies, Black bodies, were just assets for a long time. So we still haven't gotten out of that mindset. So for me as an athlete, honestly, you are an asset is what you are, end of story, period. I remember my pro day is you have your shirt off and you're just in, short tights. They're like touching your butt and, seeing, if your hamstrings are this or whatever the case may be. And there's a guy there with a pen and he's, they want to see the firmness of your glutes and they're like, good bubble, this, that, so forth and so on. And you're like, it's a little weird, right? But you're all right, this is the process I have to go through, whatever. And then you go and play and then you realize if you can't run that day, as soon as you can't perform or whatever the case may be, they're moving on to the next person. And when you look at history, what does that look and sound like? Sounds a lot like the slave trade, right? So nothing has really changed. They've given us a little bit of money for it, right? But if you listen to people talk, and particularly white people, when, an athlete says that they're holding out this year until he gets more money, they're like, I'll just shut up and play, because what is not understood, or not taken into consideration is that you are a human. Like, I'm not here to play football or here to play basketball or here, like, I'm a human being. And if I'm deciding not to play because I want fair compensation, that is not something that should be judged by anybody else, right? Because if you were an accountant and you went to your boss and asked for a raise because you were, overperforming, everybody would clap for you on LinkedIn, right? But the athlete does it, the Black athlete does it, and he's being, ungrateful, so forth and so on. That's where that was for me. I was very surprised in just how much there was a lack of care and promoting self-worth, right? That doesn't happen. Like, I try my best to do this as an employer, is you have to, with your employees, you have to promote self-worth. Like, that's something you have to, remind, the people who are following you to do, because if you don't, you push people down a path where as soon as their perceived value in the area that they're in starts to decline, there where we have mental health. Now, for some people, they can withstand that and weather that because they have strategies that they've been taught when they were younger, right? To go move through that. I'm lucky and I feel fortunate, I feel blessed that I did grow up with strategies and self-worth. My personal opinion, Caribbean culture versus American Black culture. There is very little insecurity in Caribbean culture. None, almost. We think we rule the world. That is a fact, right? But, American Black culture, what I found is there is a hint of insecurity that no one is talking about because nobody really wants to really talk about the nasty things that this country brought us to and how we got to this. They say America's the greatest country in the world. Well, of course they are. They had free labor for 400 years, right? Of course they are. But we say America's the greatest country in the world because of, liberty, freedom, justice for all, and George Washington and all these people. But that's not the truth.
Right.
The truth is the economy was built on free labor for 400 years, and they got a big head start at our expense. And that's something that we have to deal with.
I'm glad you brought that up because as we, wind up our hour, and this is just a drop in the bucket. Today is not a day to cure all. We've all walked this earth for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I legitimately just said all of our ages on here. And we come from so many different facets of life. And I want to segue into community. How do we deliver value so that people of color know their value in an American system that doesn't always value it as well? Richard, have you kind of springboard off of that, and then everyone else can chime in.
Sure. Thanks for everyone's stories. It's been fascinating. This conversation, wow. We're having this conversation because the elephant in the room is racism. As we talk about the fitness industry, I spent all of my 38 years making sure that BIPOC people could be employed, just like Yarden, in this space. I've helped connect awareness to the sport of rowing because I've always been the only. I'm the first ever African-American executive director of a rowing program in America. I'm the first ever inclusion manager for U.S. rowing. And being the first isn't always comfortable. So as we talk about bringing value, we have to bring value to ourselves and understand how to be in this space as the other, how to be in this space where they tell you we're diverse now because the president was Black, or we're diverse now in rowing because we have Richard Butler. And as I put in the chat room, diversity without inclusion is just tokenism. And Black people, we get tired of being tokens. We get tired of being in that space. I actually am on the wall too, Erica, right? And I'm the only Black face on the wall at Lululemon. And I've brought that to Lululemon's attention that where's the representation? And so us together in this room, we're talking about representation. We're talking about ourselves, self-care, and then being in service of others.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.